I remember driving down the highway through the mountains of Nevada. In fact, we were just coming into Las Vegas, and they had a lot of construction on the east side of the Hoover Dam. And as we were coming up through those mountain roads, our old diesel truck was running out of fuel, and it wasn't just every gas station you could stop at to get diesel. Number one, it was expensive, and number two, it wasn't available at every gas station. And so we had run it pretty much dry. The fuel light was blinking, and the chime was dinging about every 5 or 10 minutes, and I was getting a little concerned that we were going to have to push. At one point, I was honestly so desperate that I thought about pulling over. You know, they have those generators on the side of the road with the big flashing signs that say, move to this lane, or just an arrow that points. And so as I was driving along, and I would see those, and I could smell the diesel fuel from their little motors leaking and being old and all that kind of stuff. And I kept thinking, I'm going to reach a point where I'm going to shut down this one lane of traffic, because my old truck is going to just stall right here, and without diesel fuel, it ain't going anywhere. And it's about 10,000 pounds. It's going to be really hard for anybody to push it or move it. And so in that moment, diesel fuel became a high priority. It also is something that's not easily replaced. You know, if you've got a car that runs on flex fuel, you can put in premium or unleaded or mid-grade or even E15 or E85, whichever you want to call it. They're pretty much the same thing. But you can't put anything other than diesel in a diesel. Kerosene you might get away with, but unlikely that it will start, because it's so hard to get lit. And as I'm thinking today about the complexities of branding in today's market, what it means to build an identity or a brand of your own, how complicated that is. What does it take to set yourself apart, to be unique? And part of the challenge is that so many people offer something that looks like everybody else's. They even slap the same label on it sometimes, or they offer something that is so ambiguous as to exactly what it is and exactly who it's for that it's really hard to tell, is that for me? You know, if I pulled into a fuel station and they had 92 different nozzles, and each nozzle said something just a little bit different, but the bottom line was they were all fuel, eventually I get to the place where I'm like, oh, I just want to go to a station that just has one pump, so I know exactly what I'm putting in my car, not this with a little bit of that, and this with a little bit of that, and this with a twist of that, and you know what I mean? Have you tried to buy water lately? This one has a little H2O, but it's extra wet. This one has raspberry flavor. This one has lime and chicken flavor. And the list just goes on and on and on about the added electrolytes, or taking out this, or all the minerals have been removed, and this one's been purified, and this one's been reversed osmosis. And the list just goes on and on of all the ways to market water. Water. It's translucent. It's so translucent you can see right through it. Now, there may be a little bit of distortion depending on the vessel that your water is in, or whether it's in no vessel. But the water in the ocean, and the water in the river, and the water in the creek, and the water in the lake, and the water in the mud puddle, and the water that comes from the sky and the rain, it's the same basic compound. Some of them have picked up other elements on the way. But water is water. Is water. Now, I'm not going to argue the scientific aspect of whether you could add electrolytes to it, or make sure that it's completely pure of all substances, minerals, chemicals, and things that have been washed through the acid rain, or flooded off of chemical property grounds and into the river system or into the water table. I'm not going to argue that. Here's what I'm really getting at. What if what you sell is as common, whether in reality or perception, as water? What if what you deliver to the public can't be easily distinguished from everyone else who's offering the same thing? See, there's been a big push over the last, I would say, 5, maybe even 10 years. It's been noted that the self-help industry, the number of books published in the self-help industry, and the number of people who make money in this self-help industry as self-help gurus, I use those air quotes intentionally, and you'll understand why in a moment, that is a $21 billion industry. Billion with a B. $21 billion industry. And that was in 2008. I don't know what that number is now. Probably close to 40 billion. The irony is, with so much self-help, we still have hate and violence and rage in the streets. We have teenagers with an attitude that says, I'll jump a police officer, I'll jump a teacher, I'll jump a cop. Just recently, at a line at Six Flags, a handful of unruly teenagers were so unruly that an elderly man spoke up to them and said, guys, please, don't talk like that in front of my wife and kids. It's not appropriate. And they beat him and his wife and his kids so bad they were in the hospital. If self-help is working, why is that true? Why do we have the racial divide that we have? Why do we have a lack of peace in our school systems? If this $21 to $40 billion industry is doing the trick, why do we still have the problem? Have we simply created a level of experts who are making money but not making change? Are you guilty of that? Are you making money but not making change? Are you one of those selling water with just a little bit of twist, a little different flavor? Will the end result be the same? Basically, you're wet or you're thirsty again and you got to start the process over? Or will you bring about some transformation? I know there's some water out there that says it actually provides hydration in a way that regular water doesn't. Okay, I want to see that. I want to see how that works. Because if that's true, then it's very intriguing. So what is it that distinguishes you from everyone else? You know, on that particular road trip where my truck was running out of gas as we were driving into Las Vegas, the reason we were going to Las Vegas was because I had won at several levels and I was competing in the World Championship of Public Speaking with Toastmasters International. 35,000 contestants around the world had entered that same contest. There were 82 of us left. That's what I was driving to Las Vegas for. But on the way to Las Vegas, as a family, we had the discussion, would we go without replacing our AC unit, because we just got a tax return, and the amount of the tax return to replace the entire AC unit in our house was pretty much a match. But it was also pretty much a match to what it would cost me to join the John Maxwell team as a certified leadership coach. And I had the conversation with the salesperson before we made this trip, and we had talked about what the branding opportunity was, what the uniqueness was to the John Maxwell team, because there were a lot of other certifications out there. I think Ziegler had just recently launched theirs, or we're in the process of delivering it. Steve Siebold offered a certification course. You could be DISC certified to promote the personality profiles, or Florence Littauer. And so there were a lot of opportunities to become certified in a particular branded teaching methodology with particular content. And the prices were all over the board. I saw some as low as $12.50 that promised that they would book your speaking engagements and the whole thing and then continue to take a portion of it for the rest of your life. And then there were some that were $25,000 and $30,000 that basically you were signing on to say, I'm going to teach your stuff and I'll still be self-employed and I'll still have no brand recognition, but I will have access to your material. And then all of the gamut in between. One of the other things that I understood, and maybe I misunderstood it, but I understood that there would never be more than 500 of the Maxwell coaches. And that by signing up by a specific date, I would be one of the original 100. And I thought, you know, to be able to say not only am I a certified John Maxwell team member, but I am a founding partner. I'm one of the original 100 out of 500. That's pretty impressive. Well, I met the deadline, and we agreed to become without heat and AC for 11 months in Texas in order to pay for that certification. And now there's more than 11,000. 11,000. Now, I'm still one of the original 100, but there are a lot of people that do what I do. There are a lot of places where I'll walk into a network meeting or I'll walk into a leadership conference or something of that nature. And having the John Maxwell seal on my business card doesn't hurt anything, but there'll be a dozen others before I leave the room. So what's it like to sell something so translucent? Something that many people have a hard time just putting their hands around. I was at a conference just this week where I heard someone say, leadership has about 1,000 different definitions and all of them are right. And then as he went on to explain that, the first 3 or 4 that he commented on, I thought, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that based on what I've studied by John Maxwell. John Maxwell articulates leadership pretty simply. It's influence, nothing more and nothing less. Now, all of the things that are necessary for you to influence someone, that's pretty tricky. And how do you get good at influencing others? That's pretty tricky. And what about the responsibility that comes when you influence others? That's pretty tricky. But leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. I really like the simplicity of that. I like the way it applies. I like the ways that you can teach that from elementary school all the way up. And I have. But how do you sell leadership? Something so transparent and so elusive that literally anybody in the world could go to their tap, turn on the tap, fill a plastic bottle, and they have water. Just like Nestle's water, just like Coca-Cola's water, just like Sam's Club's water, or now QT has its own brand of bottled water. What distinguishes one from the other besides the price tag and the label on the outside of the package? And sadly, leadership teaching and training and coaching has become very much the same in that it has become a commodity that apparently anybody can deliver, anybody can speak on, anybody can speak about. And I'm not saying that the majority or any or some, I'm not saying that they're not qualified or that they're not competent or that they don't know or don't understand leadership. What I am saying is that when you choose where you receive your leadership training, you should be pretty cautious about the brand quality behind it. Who is it that you're getting it from? How deep do the roots go? How pure is what you're receiving? Another reason that I chose John Maxwell as a brand to be affiliated with over many of the others that I saw. The depth and longevity of what he has done successfully, what his organization has done around the world, especially organizations like Impact, the stuff that John Maxwell has done. The influence in other countries, in other governments, has been huge. And I respect and honor that a lot. For me, that was an important reason that I chose to be a part of that particular brand. Now, along the way, I've also discovered that I have a different teaching style than a lot of people. My mind works a little bit differently. I don't always flow with the same rigid outlines. Point 1, point 2, point 3, subpoint 1, A, B, C, D. My mind doesn't always work like that. Nor do I express illustrations and stories and ideas in the same way. There are people that I relate to very, very easily. There are people that I'll go back to after having had a conversation and have them say something like, you know, I've been reading up on that topic that we were talking about, and I really thought you were making things up when you said that, but I've done a lot of research and found out you really simplified that matter pretty well. That's the way my brain works. Is what allows me to take what I would consider some of the more complicated leadership issues and take them to middle school and high school students. How do you do it? What do you do differently? What is it about your brand that allows you to take something as commoditized as water, something as generic as water, something as translucent as water, something as elusive as water, and package it in a way that people can see your water differently from the other water on the shelf, your brand differently from the other brands in the same space? How do you distinguish what you offer from what everybody else is offering? When you can really get your hands around that question, and this has been labeled in a lot of different ways. It's been called your brand. It's been called your tagline. It's been called your subtitle. It's been called your USP, your unique selling proposition. It's been called an elevator pitch. It's been called a lot of different things. By the way, I don't teach elevator pitches. I teach people how to tell stories that change people's lives. So don't ask me to help you write an elevator pitch. I won't do it. The reality of your brand, especially in a crowded space, the reality of your brand, especially with an elusive product, the reality of your brand, especially when the space that you're in, anybody can jump into, qualified or no. The reality of your brand is people will talk about you when you leave. Your brand is what they say. Yes, your colors may influence that. Your logo might influence that. The tagline that you put right underneath your main title, it might influence that. But your brand is really nothing more than what people say about you when you walk out of the room. That's your brand. If I take a drink of what you're offering, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The colors, the logos, the scripts, the video production, they won't overwhelm that. Not going to happen. In order for your brand to have power, the content you deliver, as translucent as it is, has got to bring transformation into people's lives. Are you doing that? Are you doing it well? Then keep at it. And if not, maybe you need to make a little adjustment. Not just in the way you package what you deliver, but in the depth, the quality, and the richness, and the transformative power of what you offer. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a great day. Have a blessed day.